My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast.
And oh my God, it was a grand final.
It was a grand final.
Oh my God, 2 women, the third time in Masterchef history. 12 years.
It got pointed out. Somebody pointed out. Oh, but last year you had two. We had 3 people in that grand final because Simon was also in it. It was a 3-person grand final last year.
Yeah, but
so there were 2 women, but there were 3 people. We're talking about 2 heads-up women.
Just vagines, you know, just vagines in the kitchen.
Vagine in the kitchen.
I mean,
vagine in the kitchen. Vagine in the kitchen. No, that's not work. So no, it was a wonderful grand final. It was something we've been obviously waiting for. Everyone's been they're counting down to it, but at the same time not. Yeah. Because it's kind of been the constant through quarantine.
It has
and isolation, and then coming out of it, and then for a lot of places
going back into it.
And yeah, it's kind of an interesting time for it to end.
It is, and it is bittersweet, and it's so beautiful to see Emelia win. And like tonight was the first time I really felt just so content watching these 2 women not even battle it out. It was just like they're in their own zone, doing their thing, just kicking ass and taking names. And it was a joy to watch because it was all about the food. You know, we didn't have any special guests. The guests were the other contestants, which I just fucking adored. Instead of like feeling sorry for them, being on the gantry, peering down, going, yay, we don't get to eat anything, go you.
I really
got to eat.
I liked what they did. I thought it was really cool. I thought that what they did and the way they did it was really good.
Yep.
I liked the fact that and again, I know there are a lot of people who were sort of complaining online going, I really missed the gradual judging. I didn't miss the gradual judging. No. I liked it.
Yep.
The reason I liked it was because we got a focus on the food. Mm-hmm. Not on food plus, well, how many points do they need in the next round? Yep. And that, like, we've seen that in previous years. I'm thinking of the Sashi Grand Final, for example, where Sashi was so far clear early on that it kind of ruined.
Stop! He's already dead.
It ruined for me the Grand Final because he was so far clear that they got to the last challenge, and you could just see poor Ben going, "I don't know what I can do." But
there was a flow and an elegance tonight, and for one, like just turning around and seeing the dining table set up and that whole, just a beautiful atmosphere, and Jock in a kilt and that beautiful atmosphere, and just the playing of bagpipes and people singing me a song of a lass that is gone.
You projected a lot, didn't you?
Just a lot of Outlander images there.
You projected a hell of a lot.
I think,
but it was. Look, I thought it was amazing. I thought that it was really good the way that they, the past contestants were incorporated in a way that wasn't just random gantry support or random crowd support. They were supportive and at the same time part of the day and part of the event.
Absolutely.
And part of the festivities.
And able to socialise, which, must have been such a joy to do, particularly at that point in quarantine.
Exactly.
Like, just to be able to come together.
I thought the way that they put, especially with what happened with COVID, I thought the way they put this together was excellent. I thought the fact that you had 2 very strong women who are just so talented and skilled going against each other in, a competition. It was a competition, and this is something we've sort of had to remind a lot of people of recently. Yeah. It is a competition.
Yeah.
And they were competitive, but they were competitive while also talking each other up. And we always talk about this, especially in those who listen to Bake Off pods will know. We talk a lot about you want to win it.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it where, like one person's food is terrible and one person's food is amazing.
Yeah.
And I felt like even though there was a slight difference between Laura's dessert and Emelia's dessert, I didn't feel like it was Laura losing it. I just thought that what Emelia plated up looked sensational and just looked next level.
And let's just take a moment to acknowledge the fact that Laura burnt the fuck out of her hand, in the first 45 minutes. I'm pretty sure it was
that. It was even earlier than that.
Yeah. And then chose to go along with it. Now, there was a bit of Twitter, concern, and I was concerned too. I'm like, why the fuck doesn't she have her hand underwater? I am sure they offered that to her.
Yep.
I'm sure she's gone, fuck off, I'm cooking.
This is the grand final? No.
I am not serving up raw pork and cooked hand.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. We will. Let's start quickly because we're not going to talk long about it.
Yeah.
We're going to mention what happened in the semi-final.
Yeah.
We're only going to talk about it very briefly. And this podcast, before anyone starts panicking about what we might say, is sweetness and fucking light tonight.
Yeah,
This is a celebration.
Absolutely.
So last night, obviously,
as it would be if Reynolds got
exactly,
through too.
It would have been exactly the same. And I can hear some people going, "Oh, bullshit!" No, it would have been exactly the same.
Yeah.
So the three of them had to cook.
A pressure test.
It was a pressure test.
Yep.
And it was Martin Ben.
Yes. Strikes again.
Martin Ben strikes again. And look, I thought it was ridiculously complicated. There were 11 elements to it. A lot of people were talking last week about these are professionals and they should really be showing high-level skill and working at a ridiculously high level. And this is important that they can all cook at this high level, and some people can't stand it. What we got last night was what you've been crying out for. You've been crying out for a high-caliber, ridiculously tricky test. Here's toffee apple, which, I mean, look, I think Laura overstated it a little bit at one point where she said, it looks just like a normal apple.
No.
No.
It looks like the magical apple that possibly the Queen gave to Snow White because it was just impossibly beautiful. And I just, like, that's what you want, the toffee to apple ratio. When you get a toffee apple, someone on Twitter, I think it was Sir Baden, said that the toffee apple is the most disappointing treat at a fair. Now, I disagree. I think that is possibly, I don't know.
Cheese on a stick.
Cheese on a stick. Gabby will kill us for that. She loves everything on a stick. But no, seriously, Gabby goes to the Easter show when it's on every year to purchase things on a stick because she's a fan of the things on a stick. So anyway, back at the ranch, toffee apples, the outside is beautiful, but you know, the other stuff, well, you just put that in the bin.
See, I struggle with a toffee apple.
Really?
I do.
Why?
It's the getting through the toffee. Remember, I had braces for a very long time. And my teeth have always been a bit weird. And I got a couple of very sharp canines that like can pierce the toffee with no problem.
Yeah.
But I just worry that I'm sharpening them further. And it cuts the shit out of your mouth. Anyway.
Look, one of my special treats when I was in my mid-20s and I'd do the grocery shopping, I'd go through, we had a proper grocer that also had toffee apples, and I'd buy myself a toffee apple and they'd be like, oh, a treat for the kitty. And I'm like, yeah. Didn't mention that was me.
Far more importantly, a lot of people pointed this out. When they mentioned it was toffee apples, and it was Vaya who really mentioned this, Peter Kern?
Oh, yes. No, I was singing that first.
Yeah, you started singing that.
Toffee apple, nice and sticky. One for Julie, one for something.
Ricky, something and very sticky.
And Licky.
It wasn't Licky. I don't know. No, Licky was in Informer by Snow. You're mixing them up.
Oh.
Very similar artists.
Were they tricky?
No, they weren't tricky either.
Tricky. It's tricky to toffee apple.
They didn't meet this little girly. Her toffee apple was not curly. No, anyway.
It was last night.
But it was last night. All right, so just quickly, in terms of the semi-final, it was a tricky cook. I thought they all did a decent job at it. All three of them did a decent job at it as well. I thought that a couple of people, Miss Natsky and a few others, and Leah in particular, commented that basically what the toffee apple was a fancy roll-up. Not wrong. A rainbow is a roll-up. You must believe it's true.
Obviously he's stuck at home. It's, he's experimenting in ISO and he's got kids there, maybe. And he's like, what am I going to make them? And they're like, well, Dad, we want a roll-up. And he's like, oh, fuck, I don't have any. I'll just make my own. Get out of lathe. And he's like, ooh, idea for me.
What we also got a few times last night was the start where they kept on coming over and trying to sort of get into Emelia's head. And I loved at one point where they've come over and Jock's and Andy's like, do you want to have another crack at that while we're watching? And Emelia just sort of looks at him and goes, no, go away. Good. And then later on, she's in the oven and she's about to get the leaves out, which was the really tricky bit.
Yeah.
And Jock comes over and Emelia's just like, oh, of course you choose to come over now while I'm taking it out of the oven. And by the way, credit to production.
Yeah.
Because production could have taken that out and taken all that out and made it look like, it was the struggling, panicky, cracky Emelia and oh my God, what's going on? Yeah. Instead, they left the moments of Emelia Sass in there where she just went to them,
nah.
Oh, of course you're going to try this now. Yeah. Go away, not happening.
Yeah.
And there was a level of confidence in the way that Emelia approached last night that made me think of Elena.
Yes.
It made me think of Elena's semi-final and final.
Yeah.
which was just where all season they'd sort of underplayed her. She hadn't got a huge amount of coverage. Early on, she got nothing. A bit like Emelia, who got nothing. And then she started to appear more and more, and they were doing the doubt. And if you remember the week before the semi-finals, there was a big self-doubt moment. Yeah. And then they got to the semi-final, and suddenly...
Emelia's like, fuck
suddenly,
off.
Well, suddenly Elena in her year was just self-confidence upload.
Yeah.
Done. Right, I can fucking smash this. Yeah. And Emelia had the same thing. There was this self-confidence upload where she just went, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
I got this. Go away. Now, we're going to very quickly address this, and then we're moving on, and we're not debating it. Anyone who thinks that any form of assistance rendered last night was either unfair because Laura got an unfair advantage, first of all, or second of all, cost somebody the challenge, is kidding themselves. Neither of the two contestants who offered to help, didn't have to, offered to help, made the dish for Laura. They simply showed her how to put the apple onto the spiral and make it work.
Yeah,
that was it,
and that was the contestants choosing.
They chose to do that, and Emelia went over and sort of went, and Reynolds turned around and gave a bit of advice as well, but neither of them were told to do that. She didn't go over and ask them for help. They offered and volunteered, and again, I believe that's because, and we've talked about this a lot. If you're a contestant, you don't want to beat somebody because they've completely just bombed.
Exactly.
You want to do your best, do their best, and pit yourself against them at the peak.
Exactly.
Right?
And you could see that, Emelia would have done the same thing for Reynolds if she saw him struggling. It would have been an easier kind of pick. Now, I kind of had to think about it because I'm like, Emelia jumped in and actually provided physical support to Laura. And I just realised that Reynolds was actually facing the other way. So he didn't actually have those clues. Until he saw, okay, everything's in. But
they both offered to give help and they both offered to give advice. But again, you also don't want to overload.
Yeah.
So they both did. Look, what they both did, and there were all these people going, "That's why Masterchef is the greatest show on television. Look at that support." And all the Bake Off fans around the world went, every fucking year without fail. Now to point this out, to be fair to Masterchef, there's been a couple of examples where it's clearly happened. In Masterchef, the one that always comes to mind for me is again in the grand final, no less. In the last minutes of the grand final, Elena goes over and helps Matt.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Right, it's the very end of the grand final, and Elena goes running over to Matt and goes, "What do you need?" and helps him out. Right. For Bake Off fans, we're used to this. We see it all the time. We've had grand finals where, and
I'm just so happy that Masterchef fans can now see that too.
Yeah.
Like this year, let's not forget what Jess did. Was it with Amina? No, it was with someone, and she went over to help, and it was just such a beautiful moment. That's right. It was when Jess was on fire and she's owning the place, and she's like, "Yep, I'll help you with this too." Yeah, just bang, bang, bang. And I think it's that kind of awareness of what's going on is possibly what sets you above other people. Because if we look at what stumbled Laura tonight, it was 2 instances of not being aware. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Laura's head was, chock full of everything going on, but a freezer wasn't closed properly.
It was autopilot.
And she grabbed a hot fucking pan.
Yeah, autopilot. And that's the thing. And that's not anything on her skill. That was just autopilot. And I think it's very easy to do. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Look, Twitter was full of people tonight talking about the number of times they've burnt themselves in the kitchen by doing something dumb.
Look, let's take me, for example. Yesterday, I made one of the best pea and ham soups I've made in a while, and I apologised to my father-in-law Ian Buchanan because you won't be getting any. Because every time I walked into the kitchen last night, going, I'm going to put it away, I kept getting distracted by tidying up or doing something else or getting myself some cheese. And then I woke up this morning and just saw the soup pot there, and I'm like, oh, you fucking moron! And I was just disappointment. It happens.
But I thought that the helping,
and I didn't have to serve 60 people.
I think that I think the reaction to people on the helping issue, I actually think it's more to do with previous judges, previous series, and the way that the previous narratives around the show has been framed. Yeah. I think that it's been framed for far too long as this big. Sort of, they frame the negative and they frame the competition and and it is a competition, but you can still have room for pleasantries in the competition. By the way, if you can hear a humming noise, we've got a cat directly behind the microphone purring into the microphone. She's making up for Leo.
She's making up for Leo. She goes, look, I understand you're down a person I'd like to offer my services.
Yes,
she doesn't bark. She just
She purrs into the microphone.
And rubs up against
the
microphone. Thanks, Polly.
into the microphone.
She is a grand old dame.
She is. So anyway, the support and the level of support that was being provided, I thought was fantastic. I thought it was wonderful and I thought it was a highlight. Now,
but that had no bearing on the outcome of Reynolds' dish.
No, it had no bearing whatsoever.
Dish purely came down to he deviated from the recipe.
Twice Reynolds deviated from the recipe, and that was what cost him in at the end. And I think if he goes back and looks at it, he'd probably say the same thing, which is, look, like when they pointed out, and they did point out the fact that he'd left the leaves put them back in the oven to dehydrate, which they went, why are you doing that for?
Yeah.
And you just saw there was this moment where Reynolds looked at the oven, thought to himself, and you just saw him go, why am I dehydrating those leaves?
Yeah.
That's not right.
Because he said they were a bit too oily.
Autopilot, we talked about, and we'll talk about it when we talk about Laura grabbing the pan. Autopilot. Obviously, he's gone, I'll put them in there to dehydrate them, blah, 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 blah. Puts them in,
oil.
thinks for 2 seconds and goes, oh, shit, that's going to change the... Oh, why did I do that? Why did I do that for?
It's going to get rid of the crimping. But this is what led to something that I don't think is kosher. And this is when a judge comes up and tells you what to do. Not kind of questions, should you or should you not be doing that? That's perfectly fine, because that's a prompt. But this was a direct thing where they said, now you need to restamp those. Like, that to me, that's crossing a line.
Yeah, but again, it was... Look,
overall, it didn't matter.
No, and again, I think that the technique was high, the level of skill was high. Emelia absolutely smashed it out of the park, but...
And Laura, when she understood how to use a lathe...
What I want to talk about, though... Laura, the non-dessert specialist...
The pasta specialist?
Who did... No, but out of the three of them, the one who's not a dessert person...
No.
Absolutely smashed that for somebody who has not really got a strong dessert background.
Exactly. I mean, she does have some confusion between what an apple looks like and what a pear looks like.
Well, we got last night, we got an apple,
a pear,
we got a pear, and we got a cherry. And again, all the Animal Crossing people went, yeah, we know that.
That's fine. Where's the turnips? They're worth more.
But it was, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was wonderful to watch all three of them last night. And again, Emelia, I was so pleased to see her go through. I felt really happy to see Laura go through as well. Reynolds' conversation obviously reminds us again the importance of things like representation.
Yep.
And we've talked a lot about this idea of representation. And
like the disappointment on Twitter was palpable. You know, our TVs do not have a lot of people of colour in the mainstream, and I understand the disappointment that comes through when you're seeing someone, you know, not continue their journey, and that's, you know,
the only thing that I would say to that, and the only thing I would say about the way that people reacted, it's understanding to be disappointed, but the one thing I'd say is that there is a way to be both disappointed that somebody that you really liked didn't make it to the final.
Yeah.
And dragging people down. And Melissa Leong talked about that today. She tweeted out about that and talked about, we need to be talking about these two fantastic women.
Absolutely.
And again, we're talking about representation. And we had, and somebody tweeted, oh, it's just two white women. And it's like, well,
it's more complex than that. This is an industry that's male dominated and has for years put women, whether they're white, brown, Asian, whoever, in the background. And yes, there is privilege that comes with being a white person, but in that industry there is so much bullshit that goes on for women, whether it's like sexual harassment, not getting the same opportunities, not having the networks, being seen as, like, we look at Julie Goodwin and how she was marketed as homely, whereas Adam Lior was marketed as, you know, like sophisticated, and we see that in what's his name, Matt Sinclair as well. You know, that those tropes and those stereotypes that, you know, do not apply to all women.
No.
You know, like, you know, there's nothing wrong with being a home cook and cooking for your family and fucking loving it. Great, do that. But that is something that can be weaponized or is weaponized in the patriarchy and undervalues. How can I put it? It makes it sound like less.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's just, and so it's very complex. And to be honest, I think it was a celebration if any of those three got through, because it's like there is no cisgendered white male that rocked up.
Yeah. And I think it was amazing in terms of the skill they all demonstrated.
Oh, yeah.
I really loved as well when Emelia goes through, because she obviously had the Martin Ben dish previously where she won that challenge too.
Yeah.
Which she pointed out. I love it. She goes, Martin Ben strikes again. It just made it sound like he sells cheap appliances. What do you want? Ben. What do you want? Martin Ben strikes again. Do you want a dishwasher? Martin Ben strikes again. What do you...
Half price Hibachi's.
Who wants a pressure cooker? Martin Ben strikes again.
Lathes.
Martin Ben, you strike again. So anyway, so we got to the grand final, and then they come into the grand final. And before we get there, let's get into a couple of things we need to talk about before we actually talk about the grand final itself. Mm-hmm. And no, we're not going through it blow by blow.
No.
First of all,
just go watch it.
Thank you, Jocks on Frillo, for listening to us, getting on the Vespa, and revving it.
There we go, Jock.
Thank you. You're welcome. We gave you the idea. I know you took our idea, and we're thrilled that you took our idea.
And who doesn't want to see a man in a kilt on a Vespa? Like a dress kilt as well. Like, that is delightful. All kilts are delightful.
Drinking game time.
Oh, yeah, okay, let's do that.
Contestant has unfinished business. Tick. Redemption dish. No, didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Vespa. Well, we just said Jock got on it. The judges questioned the flavour choice. I think that kind of happened when we were talking about tonight's
Jerusalem artichoke.
Oh, yeah, Jerusalem artichokes. We're going to talk a lot about Jerusalem artichoke parties. Someone asked on Twitter, why has no one created a drinking game? Thank you to everyone who put that out there, so nobody asked us about creating the drinking game. The Drunkalandyisms. Yeah, we got those. Look, he was on his best behaviour tonight, but every now and then there was a moment. Having said that, can I just say, after watching the ad for Masterchef Junior, Andy is going to be amazing on that show.
He is going to kill that. You know, that's where your uncleisms will come in handy.
We've also had requests to do the podcast for Masterchef Junior.
Well,
which will be, it would be the nicest podcast in history because we're not going to have a go at kids.
No.
We're not going to make fun of kids. And it'll be more like our Bake Off podcast. And if you've heard our Bake Off podcast, they're a lot more lighthearted. In fact, there's another one coming out tomorrow.
Yes.
Hibachis.
You can listen and you'll find out what it's all about.
Yes, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it at the end of this. So hibachi.
Yes.
Yeah, that happened.
Oh yeah.
Parfaits.
Oh no.
Was it?
No.
There wasn't a parfait in the thing last night, was there? Was there? I can't remember.
It
feels like a year ago.
The thing is, right, there was some kind of sorbet or ice cream element, possibly a parfait, I'm not sure, but it was only really briefly mentioned. And tonight we definitely had a sorbet. And what did Laura make? We had a mousse from Emelia.
And ice cream, yeah, we didn't have it. No. Closest final ever. They didn't say that. They said it was a very close final and there was only slight margins. They didn't say it was the closest final ever. Yeah. So in other words, they got rid of the Matt, Gary and George tropes. Well done. Okay, thank you. That's something else to be thankful for. And we will talk at the end of this about the judges.
Yeah.
So let's get into the episode itself. So they get the 4 hours to do a complete service challenge, 60 plates per contestant they've got to make. Mm-hmm. They had to do for the contestants and the judge, so it was 20 per dish.
Yep.
I thought it was really a good idea to not have the gradual scoring.
Yeah.
It also throws you out if you cook.
It does, and I think, one benefit, I think it's because of COVID, because that would have involved a lot of resetting and setting and possibly a 2-day shoot rather than a 1-day shoot to condense the time.
Also, if they're talking about professionalism, and they want to talk about these people being professional, you don't stop after the entree to take a break for 5 minutes and stand there and talk to someone and then go back and start the main and then go back and start the dessert.
No.
It's a flow-on.
Yeah.
And so you had what we've talked about was the idea of longer challenges to give them prep time.
Yeah.
And they got it.
Absolutely. But what I loved about seeing their choices, they were so ridiculously well thought out. Like using things like the pressure cooker to start cooking your meats.
Yep.
Or like doing some prep or like the choices they made were just so intelligent. But they weren't boring. They were intelligent but not boring. And fuck me if I don't have crumbed ribs this week, Chris.
They looked next level. The meat, the fat, they were... Like, they looked great when they came out of the pressure cooker. Then Emelia started slicing the meat, and you could just see the meat and the fat, and it was like, and then she crumbed them.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, I'm definitely here for all of this. And those onion rings, by the way, that is bloody hard.
She made onion rings from scratch that turned out crispy and then turned them into crumbs.
I know.
Like, they had to be doubly good. Now, the other thing with Laura, right, she's just like, fucking Benito, I'm going to own this bitch. Slab of, like, how many hibachi she said? 3 or 4? It's fucking Benito, just like, see.
Incredible work. Like, the way she balanced that Benito, it looked amazing.
Yeah.
The first big moment of the episode is when Laura has all of her pork on the go.
Oh, my God.
And she has so much pork going.
It's like Babe 3, pig in the hibachi.
So she had all these pans going and she just turns around and just grabs one, and you could just see she grabbed it. There was a momentary pause, and she doesn't even finish letting go of it before she just yells out, "I'm going to need the nurse."
Christ.
And it looked so bad.
Like, that is flesh cooking. And, you know, there was a doctor on Twitter calling out that, yes, she should have put her hand underwater, because what that does is actually stops the burn, because essentially, you know, you might have removed your hand from the heat, but when you leave meat to rest, it still continues to cook. That's what's going on when you burn yourself. It doesn't stop for a good 20 minutes, and so that's why you need to be popping the water on. And
to give you an idea, but every time, like, Emelia was kept on cooking hers. They got to the end of the entree service, and that's when she goes, "Oh, Laura, you okay?" And Laura's like, and she goes, "What?" They were so involved in the moment.
Absolutely. Like, for Emelia, who last night noticed what was happening to her friend, went over to help her, for her to not notice something that kind of full on.
Zone.
That is a zone.
So I loved when they were talking about it. You know, Laura's a professional who's got this restaurant. Are you going to be okay with this large number of covers? And Emelia goes, "I'm Macedonian. I'm used to cooking for this many people." I'm like, we're thinking about it.
Yeah.
You got a Macedonian and an Italian.
They're
fine.
They're like 60 covers. Oh, this is just a Sunday brunch.
So we had the Great Wall of crock pots for Emelia, and then she goes back over, and the ribs hadn't quite cooked. Now, Andy comes over. Now, a lot of people got stuck into Andy, and normally you'd go, "Oh yeah, bloody Andy being Andy." No, I actually said Andy was right to ask the question he asked. I loved Amelia's response, though. Andy was right to ask the question. Andy said, "They're not cooking. Okay, I'm worried about you getting this up. Can you not
That's what she said.
Can you not think of a plan B and maybe do a primary cut of meat?" Right, which is a very valid question. And Andy, having been in a grand final, knows what this is like. So he's just workshopping ideas at this point. And I understand they've been annoying. But in this case, I actually thought Andy was like doing something good in terms of raising a valid point. And Emelia just looks at him and goes, "Nope." And he looks. And she just goes, "That's not what I want to present. I want to present this." And Andy's like, "But I'm just thinking about you." And she goes, "That's not what I'm prepared to present."
Yeah.
And Andy just goes, okay, and walks away.
And then they explain the reason why Emelia made that choice is what happened in her semi-final. In that, like in her previous season, in that she had prepared something, she chose to deviate because it wasn't going to plan, and the flavour profile broke down. And, you know, it wasn't what she'd prepared to present. So I think she was great to to back herself.
I love, by the way, when Laura later on brought over the 2 bowls of ice and she goes, "This one's for the food, this one's for my hand." I thought that was really good. So we got also Emelia was being angry at her beef for not cooking. I've got the beef resting over there, but I'm really not happy with it. I'm very angry with my beef. And I'm like, we've all been there. We've all been angry at the beef. So the first course, Emelia serves up her scallops with the turnip and celeriac cream and fresh apple.
Well, let's not forget that she lathed it.
She did. They were lathed. Obviously, the lathes were still in there from last night.
You know, like I think hibachi's really got stolen the show.
Hibachi, crock pots, and lathes are the industries that are going to be booming.
Yes. I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
Hibachi lathe.
Here comes the lathe. No, I don't want a hibachi because we'll burn the house
hibachi
down.
lathe combo.
Ooh, like cook.
You spin and it goes over the coals.
You can pop your pineapple on there with the cinnamon on it.
I'm here.
And just rotate and lay. Oh my God, it'd be like Insta-kebab.
I'm 100% here for all of that.
Now, that's what I put to you last night, is can you put a kebab on a lathe? And you're like, well, essentially everything in a kebab is lathed. I'm like,
kebab is the ultimate lathe food.
so then you could say it's a twice-lathed kebab. You're like,
Twice-lathed kebab.
Maybe it's twice cooked up, twice-lathed kebab.
I mean, look, it would be a thing. I'm not going to... It would definitely be a thing.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah, so I thought that was good, and then I thought that the bonito with the lily pilly and the saltbush looked just as appetizing. And look, I'm not a big fish eater. I would have happily demolished that plate.
Yeah, I love sashimi, and just the pairing of the seared side with the sashimi side would have been beautiful. And all to be able to balance those flavors, like, you know, most of us have not even tasted that, and I'm now like, we need to get more of those flavors in our life. And now I'm looking at my balcony garden going, what can I not kill on there?
So before we get into what happened with the second cook, there's two people I really think we have to mention. First of all, Tracy.
So much Tracy tonight.
Now,
more Tracy than you've seen all series.
Kim Spicer asked the question, who has had more coverage this year, the medic who dealt with Laura's burnt hand or Tracy? The correct answer was...
the guy from Broom.
The guy in the broom shirt.
Yeah.
He got more coverage than anybody. But it was good to see a lot of Tracy tonight. That was really good. And the other...
A lot of Simon eating the poor bastard.
Poor Simon. Every time they showed Simon, it was like he'd never been fed.
No, just like...
Everyone else got like whimsical shots or standing there shots, and we'll come to that in a minute.
Or Sarah Tiong having like a fist pump moment.
Yeah, we'll come to one person in a minute who really stole the show.
Yeah.
But you've got all these other people, like Khan at one point. There was a great one where Khan was cheating everyone at the table, and he tweeted back, I was just trying to steal everyone's wine. But you've got all of these things, and you've got like more Tracy than you've seen ever before. Poor Simon, as I said, every time they caught him, he was eating something.
Sarah Claire looking
this
amazing.
Is where I wanted to go
Oh
to.
my God.
This is where I was going. So...
Jackie O.
Was the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy from Company B? That was the Sarah Claire outfit.
Yes.
A toot, and a toot.
I saw this kind of Jackie O meets Wilma Flintstone meets Molly Ringwald. Like, for me, it was just a beautiful combination. It's colours, the hair, the style. That's how she became the nanny.
Get out of my head.
Oh, sorry. No. You looked amazing, Sarah. And... your commentary and Sarah's commentary tonight I really appreciated. Like, just the way you're able to describe your experience eating the food. It was...
I thought there was some...
helpful.
Look, I thought it was really good to see everybody, and I thought Reese's narration was really good.
Yeah.
The other person whose narration is always outstanding is Callum. I can listen to him talk food.
Wax lyrical. Him and Melissa on a podcast.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Don't give them ideas. They'll put us out of work.
No, they won't.
People don't like our witty banter.
They'll never say the word felching on their podcast.
That might be why people listen. Anyway, so we had the second course. And the second course was, first of all, the Wessex Saddleback pork. And as I said, Laura's pork was cooked to perfection. Her hand was a little bit over.
Yes, the pork was blushing pink and so was her hand. That was burnt.
But that Saddleback pork looked so good.
The texture on it, you could actually imagine that pork going into your face, and the pork she put on Sarah's fork tonight.
And again, they did cut to the pork expert.
Yes.
We cut to the pork correspondent who talked about the quality of pork. So go, Sarah.
But also her sauces, like using 3 sauces. Like, she's just like, I'm upping my sauce game, because she always does a double sauce. Tonight, triple sauce.
And again,
triple threat.
And again, for the Animal Crossing people out there, turnips. But then you had the beef short rib. I thought that was a stroke of genius. It looked simple, but the different techniques involved in preparing it are so complicated. And as friend of the podcast, Robert Harwood pointed out,
yeah,
the technique involved in cooking the onion rings to the right consistency.
Yep.
Then re-cooking them.
Yes.
And not burning the fuck out of them. That is incredible.
Yeah. My only criticism is that I noticed her dredging technique. Like, I know she just wanted to get it right. You should have a dry hand and a wet hand. And I'm not saying that I can probably dredge, but I've been watching Epicurious and that's what they said to do. And quite frankly, I would still have Emelia's technique because I can't do that.
I always start with a dry hand and a wet hand, and I always end up washing my hands.
Just getting confused.
Now, this did bring out a Jock Masterchef out of context moment.
Yes.
Where he said, I'm in a state of cat-like happiness.
Now, considering we are basically surrounded by cats at the moment, one who is thoroughly content and one who isn't, you know, one who is, I've got
Prowling.
lorikeets coming to visit the balcony, and I feed them apple, and one of them, the cat, thinks that she's the great white hunter, so I just have to kind of.
By the way, the lorikeets are almost bigger than her.
Yeah,
they could probably carry
beat
her
up.
They could probably carry her off.
And if I wasn't there to, we keep them separate. Trust me, like, they're not in any danger.
I caught a cat the other day, literally caught it midair.
Yes, it's fine. We've got this under control. Even when the lorikeets like jump on us, and my father-in-law calls us Crumben Bird Sanctuary, it's fine. Did you ever go there?
Yes.
Do you know what my biggest score that I fucking loved when I went to Crumben was? The shirt that had the puff paint on it that looked like bird poo. And it's like, I've been to Crumben Bird Sanctuary. It was hilarious. I thought it was the height of fashion.
And with that,
yeah,
ain't no party like a Jerusalem artichoke party, because a Jerusalem artichoke party don't stop.
Oh.
So
Whoop,
I
whoop.
have to. Andy, look, he had a good night by his standards, but
Yeah.
I still can't quite work out what he meant when he said it wasn't a Jerusalem artichoke party, and not in a bad way. I assume he means that it didn't just taste like Jerusalem artichokes, but the way he phrased it,
As if Jerusalem artichoke parties are just a thing, you know, like, oh, we're going round to Andy's place, he's throwing another one of his Jerusalem artichoke parties. I heard it was a soiree. No, it's definitely a party.
I did ask on Twitter what happens at a Jerusalem artichoke party. A couple of people said whatever happens there stays there.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of other people pointed out that they're more here for the Jerusalem artichoke after party.
Oh!
Never go big early. Always be ready for the Jerusalem artichoke after
I presume
party.
it's quite refined and upmarket and quite classy. And then the after party is where just like things are let loose. There's copious amounts of dusts that have been like charred Jerusalem artichokes that have been like lined up, just like
So what I appreciated
Jerusalem
so
artichoke
much,
dust everywhere.
what I appreciated so much was
Yeah.
that
I was trying to relate that to cocaine and just
Laura
my joke just wasn't hitting.
went
Yes.
for a really out of the box dessert.
Fuck yeah.
I love the fact that Laura in the grand final went, no, fuck it. I'm confident enough. I'm going to try this.
And people, like, the other contestants were like, I'm really looking forward to trying Laura's. Like,
And they all said that it was,
bite.
they all said, the judges all said that it was just that one little bit of texture, possibly the granular it was possibly, as they said, the wattle seed, which has been highly contentious.
It was quite sandy.
Yep, so the
Shock
wattle
found.
seed probably was the thing that caused the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The iciness was possibly the open-closed freezer thing.
Yeah.
But those two slight things were the only things they could find. And they said it was minute things that would probably be the difference, which is what
Yeah.
it turned out to be. But the idea, look, I'm not a big fan of Jerusalem artichokes. I probably would have eaten it.
You know what I'm hoping to see in next season of MasterChef is more education on native ingredients, how to eat them, how to source them, like, you know, locally, and like to make sure that you're getting it through, say, a supplier that's got theirs from an Indigenous supplier.
Well, I get the feeling that,
Yeah.
you know, if they do it without COVID, they've probably got more scope to be able to do
Absolutely. It just depends on how the plague pans out.
more. See what happens. But,
Yeah.
you know what did pan out?
What?
The pistachio financier.
Oh, yes. Now, when you're looking to, you know, to fund your bakes, there's no better financier than a pistachio financier.
It's a financier that, you know, as a couple of people pointed out quite rightly, as a financier that really paid off to the tune of $250,000. What a financier that was. If only all financial decisions worked out like that.
Yeah.
They said they could not find a flaw in what she did. Also, can I just point out, it's been a big fortnight for Davis and Plums.
Fuck me. Like,
They've never had a fortnight like this, ever.
a truer tweet has never been tweeted than the real winner of MasterChef 2020 is
Davidson Plum
Suppliers.
Suppliers. It was just insane. And I love the fact that Andy could not,
Yeah.
on his face...
Keep a poker face.
Look, they were,
Like,
if they were trying to give a, well, do we like that or not idea, when they cut to poor Andy, he just literally had a look on his face. There was a smile, and he looked at Melissa like, that's it.
I just want to, at this moment, give a shout out to the editors of tonight's episode who I feel it was flawless. There was nothing that I would change in this.
We've criticised them a bit, but this is where they got it right.
Yeah,
I thought they did a good job.
You know, even like that was a choice to choose to show Andy's face. They could have shown anything. They could have, you know, spliced something in where he's just looking off into the middle distance between courses going, oh, okay, do I on my way home pick up, you know, milk for tomorrow so that, you know, I can have a cup of coffee in the morning, or do I just order a coffee in? Instead of like focusing on that face, they focus on his, well, that was pretty delicious. I know who's winning.
Yeah, well, that was really good. And then there's two other big things I want to talk about before we sort of get into the last part of it, and then we get into just general thoughts.
Yeah.
First of all, Laura and Emelia, the way they spoke about each other, and it's not just because they're friends, but I think it's also the level of respect they have for each other's food.
Yeah.
That was so nice to see. And so it was so encouraging, I think. And we talk about the impact that shows like this can have. And, you know, we've talked before with Elena about representation for women on TV. And I think that one of the things that I took from this is that, and we saw it then followed up with the ad for Junior Masterchef, where, you know, some of those young kids just like, as somebody tweeted out, yeah, the show is called, was actually going to originally be called, you know, Adults, How Inept Do You Want to Feel? But it's too long a title. But those kids have been inspired by things like MasterChef. And I think that seeing two confident women who are talking positively about other women is a great thing to see.
And even like just the little glimpses of Tessa tonight, like these moments of women holding up other women are so important, particularly when we're force-fed shows like, I don't know, some bachelor...
Love me.
Who have to slut shame and tear down people, to actually show that in reality, real power comes from holding each other up. And and we saw that between Brandon and Reese. We saw that. Remember that beautiful moment where it was all of the Asian people in the show that were left, the 5, they're ready to battle it out for immunity. Like they had the best. Yeah. It's just that, not only that representation, but that kind of strength and community
support.
Support.
Imagine see this moment. We never thought we'd see this moment.
That it's not just about broing out and sausage parties, you know, like, because that's essentially what we've been shown in the past, is those kind of relationships being the only valid relationships.
And again, we're not talking in that regard just on the basis of contestants. And one of the things, and we will get into it in a moment, that has changed that dynamic is the way that the judges choose to interact with people, and that's been huge.
Like, do you remember earlier in the series where Simon, Amina, and Rose, and they were, you know, the Middle Eastern group, and suddenly Simon,
honorary Middle Eastern woman,
and there was this beautiful camaraderie between, you know, the three of them, who I feel that just wouldn't have. It would have had a very different dynamic if that was like, might have been Simon and his bitches rather than
Simon wouldn't have described it like that.
No, Simon wouldn't have described it like that. But that's, I think, how it would have come across.
The impression would have been presented. Yeah.
Look at this white man discovering Middle Eastern food. Oh,
how lucky are you?
Yes. You've got a man with less pigment in his skin and a penis here with you.
That's a very good George impression. Anyway, the other thing that we need to talk about, and this is going to segue into, you know, obviously a further conversation. We've talked a lot about the importance of the judges and the way the judges interact and the way the judges talk and the way the judges present themselves. And Melissa's been a bit quiet in the last few weeks, and they sort of let her talk here and there, and we've commented on the fact that, you know, she should be talking more. Tonight, the final decision is, for me, the example of why you have Melissa Leong on our TV screens, because the way that Melissa was able to succinctly explain the reasons why they were able to come to a decision, the way they were able to come to a decision, and what the differences were, was so eloquent. It didn't put anyone down. She talked up Laura's dish before she said about that slight difference. She talked about the flavour. She talked about the taste, the way it ate, the way the mixture, the combinations. And the way that Melissa was able to eloquently explain that made everything 100% worthwhile.
Absolutely, because we know this is going to be so fucking hard for Laura. Like, she is, you know, not to say that no other contestant did, because they all gave their fucking all, you know, like Reynolds' reaction last night when, you know, he was let go was so palpable. And it was going to be the same for Laura. You know, she made it this far. She made it very clear, you know.
I came second once. I don't want to come second again.
I know how that feels. So I feel that to have someone eloquently explain the reason why the decision was made, without going, oh, you suck, you know, shit. Not that I would say that.
No, but the thing was that previously they would have talked about, they would have used a lot of word soup.
Yep.
So they would have used a lot of overboard words that mean absolutely nothing at all and did not give you an understanding as to why. And they sort of, the way the previous judges would have done it would not have been anywhere near as not
graceful.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been as graceful, and it sort of would have felt more forced.
Yeah, they were making up a narrative,
and there would have been a pause. But there was a pause there too, but the pause didn't even feel like the dramatic pause where, you know, like I said, usually they get Matt to do that verdict, and Matt would have just paused and looked and got really smug, and that's why you are. And it was just
no consideration.
The way that Melissa just said, you know, talking about there was that slight issue with blah, 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 and Emelia, yours had none, and that is why you are the winner of Masterchef. And it was just really well done. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and no swearing from Emelia. Like, you know, we got her holy shits in last night. Yeah, tonight it was just like, you're joking, you're kidding, right? Like,
and you can see again, they were both like, Laura was really like, she's upset, and at the same time trying to say to Emelia, I'm genuinely so happy for you. And you could tell both were true. And like Emelia was like genuinely deliriously happy and like really sad for Laura and trying to support Laura.
Now, one thing I do think has come into MasterChef's favour with this whole COVID thing is that all the fireworks places that would have supplied the footy are now selling their shit half price, because we had them go off at the casino on the drive-in.
Indoor pyro!
And then they had some indoor pyro that didn't set the glitter on fire that I was expecting. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. So I really feel that, you know, COVID does have its benefits if you're going for half-price pyro.
First of all, by the way, MasterChef, can somebody clean the trophy? It's
without scratching
through the shit house. Somebody suggested to me tonight that it was the dishwasher. I did say they use cheap tablets and no rinse aid. So maybe fix that up. Get the intern to like buff it. Yeah. Brasso. Get the Brasso out.
You need Silvo for that one, and you don't want to use anything abrasive. Like I'm just looking at it going, that is, if I was in my Girl Guide days when I had to use Brasso and shine my badge, because you're supposed to remember your promise you made while you shine your badge, which they don't have to do anymore. It's just a bit of, you know, cloth over the top. There's
the promise that you promised to shine your badge?
No, I promise that I will do my best to do my duty to God, which, you know, it shouldn't have been in there, but it was there, to serve my queen and country, to help other people, and to keep the guide. Look, see, I remember it. You know why? I had to shine my fucking badge.
My brother was a Joey, and the only reason I know that because they used to help the people, hop, and that was their slogan, and I love that. Anyway, I wasn't. I had no involvement in any of those things. Anyway.
Just imagine you going there and trying to subvert it and doing like a takeover and just going, this is something I learned in history class, and it's called a coup.
But what I loved was my brother did Joey's but never got to Cubs. He's like, that sort of sums up. And Andrew, you don't listen, but even if you do ever listen to it, you can admit to this. He frequently started things but never finished.
Like the day he played soccer.
Yes, he played soccer, scored his goal, walked off, and went, scored my goal. That's it, done. He scored 2, to be fair, and then walked off after the second one and went, no, don't need it anymore, and never played again. So I thought that let's get into, like, first of all, Emelia. Like, obviously, I am beyond thrilled.
Yeah.
She's
been one of your favourites, yeah.
It's fucking vindication.
I can
Emelia,
see for you.
To explain, again, to people who either haven't listened a lot or haven't heard before, I talked at the very start of this about the fact that Emelia was sort of the first contestant that I ever sort of watched and started actively cheering for, and was desperate for her to win her season. I was so disappointed that she didn't manage to win that series. And I always felt that Emelia was one of the ones where I look back on it and went, oh, she really should have won her series.
Yeah.
And so for Emelia to be back in this series, I'm like, yeah, it'd be really good to see Emelia, and just watching her growth and what the story is. And there were a lot of people there were some people talking tonight before the show about, oh, well, I'm not going to watch because it might be a bit boring because they're not as exciting as some of the other people. Bullshit. My argument is both Laura and Emelia demonstrate people that were in this show who were highly skilled, went away and became even more highly skilled and talented and refined their craft and then came back and demonstrated through the run of the show just how far they had developed their abilities.
And
that's a narrative. That's a story.
And just that quiet moment after they've both finished cooking, where they're in the kitchen just looking at each other kind of in a bit of bewilderment.
We finished the grand final.
And it hit them, and you saw the sadness come to them, and they're like, I don't want to leave. And so now I'm just imagining them bunking up with the Trents.
Yeah, the Trents, and of course Queen Ninja, Tracy.
Ninja Queen.
Ninja Queen. So I asked on Twitter today, what was your personal highlight from this series? Let us know and we'll talk about them on the pod.
Yeah.
So Timberwolf says the Katy Perry episode.
Oh, yeah.
It was so hilarious to the contestants fangirling and fanboying all over the place. And also it was great to see the male judges surrender to surrealism of the episode and drop the put-on personas.
Yes.
That was great. Everyone just sort of geeked out.
And not to mention Katy Perry's "You're the tits, Reese."
Yeah, "You're the tits, Reese" is a phrase that I think will live forever.
And Reese, you should start your own brand of T-shirts.
You Are Loved, which was something that was someone said was a highlight for them. You're the tits. So Mandy Shiva said Melissa. We'll talk a bit more about that in a minute because a lot of people said that. Snacking by the judges and the drinking by the contestants, especially when Sarah was drinking out of the measuring cup. The way the contestants felt comfortable sassing the judges.
Yeah.
The staircase suddenly coming into its own with the judges and the contestants hanging off it. The camaraderie and the ways they found to virtually hug post-COVID.
Yes.
Some very inventive things.
Like, one of the most beautiful moments tonight was just seeing everyone in their own little bubble of excitement celebrating Emelia's win. Like, it was just that awkward social moment that we're all having these days. Like, oh, I want to hug you, but I can't, and it's so good, and it's... It was fun.
Degustation Destination added in Snoop Dogg rescuing commercial breaks for all of us. Hashtag tacos to the chateau. Leah said Jess winning immunity, especially the second time. Sarah Tiong, always, because she's such a good cook and such a compassionate person, willing to cheer on and say nice things about everyone else. And 100%. Neil also said, Sarah Claire drinking wine out of the measuring cup, a highlight for all of us. Victoria added in Melissa again, a highlight of almost every episode. Jessica added in the fashion, the You Are Love shirts, the book releases, the camaraderie, diversity, the representation, the Melissa, and most importantly, the lack of George. We're going to talk about the judges in a minute. Kim Spicer, Jess helping Amina.
That's it. She was helping Amina. And it was
Emelia helping Laura. Amelia's humour emerging. Sarah Claire drinking the wine. That's Sarah Claire. You've won that. Sarah Claire's fashion. Katy Perry calling Reese the tits. Learning that Callum has a cooking school.
What?
Yeah. Did you not know?
Oh, no,
it's a cooking school. They never mentioned it.
Oh, bloody hell. Jeez, they should have given him at least a moment to, spruik himself at the end of this series. I mean, they gave Reynolds 20 grand, Laura 30,000. The least they could have done for Callum, who came fourth, was to mention
advertise the cooking school. Kaylee said Amina, Tracy, Emelia's sushi train immunity challenge. Forget about that, but that was such a good challenge, that one. Yes. What I love about that was the Amina, Tracy and Emelia's sushi train immunity challenge was the three of them just in the kitchen with nobody there.
Just chatting.
This is us. Sarah and the wine. Sarah Claire, you've had an impact.
Wine.
Poe and Mel's moment by the oven, which again, that was brilliant. Yeah. Reese being tens across the board and the tits. The Brees banter.
Yes.
They're back and forth. Again, you guys, if you guys don't start a pod, you're missing out.
You're missing out.
Pork Sarah's existence.
They're not missing out. We're missing out. Yeah.
And Khan and Reynolds baking pies at the back bench. That was cool.
That was really cool.
MPD said Emelia tasting Amina's non-halal beef for her, which was, again, brilliant early on. That was fantastic. They are the theatre of Poe.
Yes.
The sweetness of Jess. Poe's 90-minute cake. Jess helping Sarah. Sarah running for the vinegar to clean the bench. Yeah. Brendan slapped noodles. Emelia finally getting some screen time. Jock's vest and Melissa's earrings.
Yes. Something else I want to mention is Katy Perry flirting shamelessly with Sarah.
Oh, that was hilarious.
I was shipping them so hard. I think I also really... The camaraderie I mentioned before between Simon, Amina and Rose, that was so lovely. Just so many moments.
Brandon said Melissa's shedding tears over Poe's chicken curry and explaining why the dish in the story meant so much.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
lovely. Again, Emelia, Amina and Tracy being BFF goals in the sushi train challenge.
Yeah.
Laura finally winning immunity and Emelia finally realising how exceptional she is.
Yeah.
Good answers. Miss Me was Amelia's sass, Mel answering the phone at the restaurant.
Oh, yes.
Such a good moment. Amina seriously trying to convince the judges to let Tracy and Emelia share immunity with her. Callum and Laura's friendship. Khan's amazing fashion choices. Tonight, by the way, Khan was just fashion.
He was like the lady in red, just wanting to dance with me, not me.
Catherine said,
The wine.
Catherine said, I learned so much about different types of Asian food and the countries it comes from. I never want to hear the vague description of Asian flavours ever again.
Absolutely. I think if you are one of the people responding to the call out by the judges tonight, with the whole, come, let's do it, fuck the plague, come cook at Masterchef. Rewatch this series and listen to the stories of Reynold and Jess and Sarah and Poe and Melissa talking about, their heritage, how things differ. Like, remember when Sarah would talk about, I'm from Malaysia, but I'm doing a Thai style. And it's just, you know what I mean? Like, just those little things that give context, and it gives what's that word? Oh, fuck it. It was just wonderful.
It was
I just think you should just...
A couple of others, and I'm just going to race through these last couple here because we've got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Some of the personality of each contestant and the judges shining through like never before. I hope that continues.
Yeah.
And my favourite one, which was simply, does Reese count as a highlight? Yes. Reese does indeed count as a highlight.
Like, I have to admit, in his season, was not a fan of Reese. I wanted to be, I'm like, I really should. But the way he was edited, it was just not cool. And then in this season, we see the real Reese.
He was so good.
Amazing, talented, skilled, friendly, gorgeous person. Oh,
Now,
I feel ripped.
before we finish up, we have to talk about one other big thing from this season. This season would not have been what it was without the change in judges.
Yep.
If the judges had stayed for another season, it would have killed the franchise.
Yeah.
And I have absolutely no qualms in saying that. I think if you'd had another season with Gary, Matt and George, I think if you had another season with those three, I think MasterChef dies. I think that the change was good, and it wasn't just because they were getting tired. The change was good because it's a change in ethos. We've gone from, and again, even though Andy and Jock can still occasionally fall into that negative trap, more often than not, the three of them looked for ways to raise people rather than lower them. Even when they said Andy and Jock still had their moments occasionally, and we talked about it.
But those moments happened
End of COVID.
End of COVID, when everyone is under an extreme amount of pressure. So, if they've gotten through this far without us going, oh my God, it's another fucking night of watching MasterChef, how are we going to do that? That didn't happen this season.
No.
And it was MasterChef was a relief this season. It was a something. I'm probably not the only person, but it was one constant that really helped with the pandemic going on and being in either lockdown or isolated from family and friends.
Yep.
It was a joy to watch.
And those three brought something new. I think I can't remember who it was, and I apologise, but someone last night hit the nail on the head with Andy, where they said that what we saw last night from Andy is actually what we should have seen from Andy all along. Don't try to sell Andy as the food expert. Jock is your expert. I mean, yes, Andy has a very well-renowned restaurant, but Jock is the one who should be there as the restaurateur.
Yep.
Mel is there as the food critic who understands food and can talk about flavours and all the sort of different backgrounds.
Yep.
Andy should be almost like the representative of the contestant.
Yeah.
I've been here, I've done it, I know what it's like. Let me put myself in the position of the contestants and explain what it's like for the people at home to be in their spot, and also sympathise with the contestant who's in that spot and sort of be the person who goes, look, I know where you are.
Yeah.
This is
I can imagine where you are.
I've seen what you've seen. I've been in this position.
I know that stress can affect you. I know that pressure can affect you.
Yep. And we got that last night from Andy.
Yep.
And I thought that was the best Andy's been. I thought when he was doing that, that was good Andy.
Yeah.
But I think all three of them, and I mean, we've raved and raved and raved about Melissa Leong. and rightly so. She's been the absolute breakout of the whole
But if
thing.
you take Melissa Leong out of this 3, it's not cool.
No.
It
And
wouldn't
that's
be
the thing.
what it was.
And that's the thing. I think that, and again, Andy, as I said, when he's given the right material and in the right place, he's fantastic. And I have a lot of time. Jock's food knowledge, Jock's understanding. I think these 3 with brand new contestants will be absolutely amazing.
I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm keen to see how it's going to differ for the contestants, and hopefully it's going to be, you know, a more fortuitous journey for them. Not that I'm saying the past 11 years have been, you know, a waste of time. They haven't. It's had its moment.
And already
with
the
those
vibe,
judges, yeah.
And already the vibe we saw on those ads for MasterChef Junior. These 3 look spectacular at this.
Absolutely.
It's going to be super cool.
It looks really authentic, like genuine. It doesn't look forced. And I think, you know, it's as good for them as it is for the contestants. I think being around kids and, you know, seeing young people excited about food, that's got to buoy your spirits when you're a foodie.
100%.
And, you know, you're stuck in fucking Plagueville.
Now, one more thing before we get to the very end of it, which is tomorrow night.
Yes.
Lifestyle food, if you happen to have Rupert's company's streaming service. Lifestyle food, 8:30, The Great Canadian Bake Off.
Finally.
Season 1. This is a couple of years.
years.
It's from a couple of years ago. We did a podcast at the time to talk about it. We are doing a rewatch podcast. We are tweeting it live, and we are having guests.
Oh.
Right. We don't have any for week 1, but that's not because we haven't got them lined up. On the contrary.
No.
We've got quite the smorgasbord of guests coming up.
We do.
So we are going to have a lot of people involved with the show. I'm not even going to say just contestants. I'm going to leave it at that. We've got a lot of people involved with the show coming on the podcast.
And the double benefit is, if you haven't already watched it or listened to our Canadian Bake Off, previous Canadian Bake Off episode pods, you can listen to both, our new one and our rewatch.
Because rewatching it, we're going to pick up more new things. What I will say to you without spoiling the series for those who haven't watched it is one of the most delightful shows on television. It is lovely. It is the closest, if you've seen Australian Bake Off, it is the closest you will get to Australian Bake Off. We kind of like it more than British.
Yeah.
It's really level with Australian.
And, you know, I'll occasionally train you on how to use Newfie.
Oh, Kristie will break out her Newfoundland slang because she loves her Newfie slang.
Dies at you.
Yeah, exactly. We'll come back to that later.
Okay.
So that'll be save it for the podcast.
Oh, me nerves.
Right. So that will be on tomorrow night after the episode of the Great Canadian Bake Off, Great Canadian Baking Show. It'll be on Lifestyle Food at 8:30 on Foxtel. So check that out if you have the opportunity. Finally. That is the end of our MasterChef series. We may, however, in fact, forget may, we are going to pop back in, hopefully, with a couple of little special things for you. There's one special thing in particular that I'm really excited about. So we'll keep that powder dry, but we are going to be back. So keep an eye out for maybe something connected to MasterChef in the very near future. It has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been an honour and a privilege.
Even with...
That's for Chronicles of St. Mary's fans.
It was, I know. Even with...
all 3 of you possibly listening.
Even with the...
But if you haven't read the Chronicles of St. Mary's, go and fucking read it. It's fucking brilliant. Jodie Taylor is awesome.
We're so close. So close to freedom.
Keep going.
So, even with some of the stands for different people, it was actually really fun live tweeting this. It was an easy watch. It was easy to podcast. It was easy to commentate. It was easy to do all the sort of stuff we do.
Easy to wrap up.
Thank you very much to everyone who has listened to the podcast, who has commented, who has given feedback, good, bad, or otherwise. Even the bad. We appreciate all of it. We appreciate everyone.
Shout out to all our foul fiends out there.
Yes, Chester the Chicken, this is for you. We really appreciate every single one of you, and we're happy to continue to do this because we love chatting to you guys, and it's just such a great online community, and we really love being a part of it. And as always, thank you to the talent sitting to my right.
And thank you to the herder of cats, keeper of Kristie's to my left.
The keeper of Kristie's. There we go. We'll take that in. Thank you again to everyone as well who's come onto the podcast. All of the people who have been guests this year. All of the people who have had a chat to us. All of the people that have given us questions. All of the people that have given us feedback. It's been an absolute blast, everybody. We will be back tomorrow night. We will be back tomorrow night for those people listening to the Great Canadian Bake Off. Until then, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
We will catch you all next time.
You're the tits.